The recording is progress.
Welcome back, everybody. Back to Bosi L'Gani. Bosi L'Gani ahoisi kala. Come to my garden, my sister, my bride. One of the things that, if you've been following this conversation we've been having for quite a while now, that we haven't mentioned, and I recently just discovered this aspect of it in this month's Chassidus Derher. It says, this is a line from Shir Shira, right? Bosi L'Gani ahoisi kala, come to my garden, my sister, my bride. There are two recipients. That the initiator, which is the masculine, the initiator, is reaching out to two receivers, and in the Hasidic construct, masculine is the first of the six spheres, all reach down into Yesod, and then they spill into, fertilize, the seventh sphere, which is Malchus, which is feminine. And these two words, come to my garden, my sister, my bride, I never noticed this before, are obviously two feminine relationships between a man, a sister, or a wife. So I'm going to take a little digression here at the beginning and read to you a short piece from the Chassidus Derher for this month. First of all, let's remind ourselves, this mimer, Bosi L'Gani, was given out by the Frierdiker Rebbe by the Frierdiker Rebbe, right, the previous Rebbe, to be said on Yud Shvat, and he passed away, is the normative way we speak about someone going to the other world after he's in a body. But in the language of the Torah, he's nostalgical. He has a histalkus, he has an elevation. And this elevation is actually called a wedding ceremony. Histalkus Rashvi, when we celebrate the yortzeit of the Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, it's called Hilula, the wedding ceremony. So when the tzaddik goes up, and he's rising higher and higher every year, the higher he goes, or she, but that soul is called tzedek, that higher that spark of righteousness goes, the more it is for the geula down here below. Why? Not because they're here, but because the closer you get to God, the closer you get to his panemius intention, his innermost intention. And what's God's innermost intention? We say it in Hebrew, it's brought in many Maimorim Chassidus. Nesava Kutchubrichu, the Holy One, blessed be he, desired Liyaslay, that he should have a dira b'tachtonim, a dwelling place in the lower world. And so the mission, in a nutshell, of all tzaddikim, and in this particular construct, we're speaking particularly about the generational soul of Mashiach, from David through many tzaddikim, particular specific tzaddikim of each generation, until the Frierdiker Rebbe and our Rebbe Menachem Mendel. Their intentionality and their illumination as they go up is increasingly united with God's intentionality, which is that there should be a dwelling place in the lower world. Now, the lower world is the recipient, right? So, as this little article in the Frierdiker, in the Derher points out, the date of the mimer, I'm reading now, Yud Shvat, honored the yortzeit of the Frierdiker Rebbe's grandmother, Rebbetzin Rivka, who was the wife of the Rebbe Marash. The next installment, and it came out in installments, was published for Yud Gimel Shvat, which is the yortzeit of the Frierdiker Rebbe's mother, Rabbi Steiner Sarah. So this mimer, which would conclude the Messias, the rulership, so to speak, of the Frierdiker Rebbe, is a mimer that defines our generation, and our generation being centered particularly on two Nashim Tzidkaniyos, two of our holy Rebbetzins. And the conclusion is here that, if you remember, first part of this whole mimer is all hinged on an expression, a pasuk from Shmos, which says, Bosi L'Gani, that's the Shir Hashem, which says, Nasa li mikdash, make for me a holy temple, The Shekhinah b'soichai, and my Shekhinah will dwell within it. The Shekhinah is the sphere of Malchus. Malchus is the recipient. Malchus is the feminine. Make for me a holy temple. You're going to build it for the purpose of what? That the feminine energy of Shekhinah, which is the energy of redemption, should be permeating the entire world. And with that, as I said, that was a perspective on it that I hadn't, it was there, but I hadn't really brought it out even to myself until I read that little piece in the Bosi L'Gani. It's all about redemption. And redemption is particularly focused on the woman quality. The masculine quality, of course, is necessary for the fertilization, but the feminine quality is necessary for the birth of redemption. All right, with that said, before I go on, any comments or questions anybody wants to make on that piece?
You said
Yes.
way back that Yesod and Malchus were both of the feminine.
Say that again, that what?
So let me go off Esther and go
Okay, can you hear me now? Better?
Much better. Yeah.
Okay. So right at the beginning of this, you said that there were two recipients, that the masculine reaches out to Yesod and Malchus. Yesod and Malchus are both of feminine?
I didn't say that. Yesod is the bottom of the stack of masculinity. Yesod is the zera, is the seed. Everything goes into, it condenses in Yesod, and then Yesod, in following the metaphor, impregnates Malchus. So is masculine, and Malchus is the receiver.
So you mentioned something being two feminines, and you said a sister and a wife.
Yeah. So those are two. This mimer doesn't go into it. I actually just noted it in passing. There's something that I noticed. What is the relationship? The character. What the relationship between men and women are? The close relationships are sister and wife. Now we're not going to get into that because the mimer doesn't get into it.
Okay, I'm gonna skip it because it doesn't seem like it's relevant. I don't want to confuse people.
It's not relevant to the mimer.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
It's not relevant to the mimer. Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else before we move on? Okay. So if you're following in the text, we are on page 132, and the paragraph is Yud Beis. Okay. The last thing that we learned together was the first part of the mimer, focusing, make for me a holy temple, and my Shekhinah will dwell within you, which is, in a nutshell, the notion. Shekhinah is the divine presence, which will establish the redemption. And that power exists within each and every one of us. I guess we should note aside that each and every one of us who are in either male or female bodies, we both have the entire sphere construct. So there's a feminine construct in a man, the Malchus construct, which is the king, and there's a masculine concept in a woman, which is the notion of all the spheres from Chesed down to Yesod. By the masculine, that first part, masculine, characterized by giving out and building, and the building itself, the container, being the feminine aspect. And every male and female has both. The predominant quality, once we said that the predominant emphasis in this generation, and beginning with the Frierdiker, it's the Frierdiker Rebbe who really put on the table the notion of the Geula coming through the influence of the feminine energy.
Wait, I'm sorry. I think you said that the king was or the Malchus is I think you said feminine, but do you mean masculine?
Malchus is Malchus is twofold.
Wait, no, Malchus is feminine, right?
Malchus, twofold. Malchus is king, right? Melech, same word, Melech, king. And Malchus is also feminine, as in Eshes Chayil Ateres Bailu. Malchus is the feminine, Malchus is the crown. So let's unpack that a little, okay? The masculine aspect of Malchus, Melech, right? Melech is a masculine word. Malka is a feminine word, but they both are Malchus. So there's two qualities to the Malchus. There's the Malchus who builds the kingdom, that is, reaches out into the territories and infuses it with all the energy that's coming from above to below. The woman is the recipient of that, who develops all that and creates, and with that development, the instantiation of what God's innermost intention is, which is the dwelling place down below, a realization of a birth. We talk about the birth of Mashiach, right? So that's a feminine quality. And then there's a feminine quality of we say, of Malchus on every Shabbos, as I mentioned earlier. A woman of valor is the crown. So the man starts the motion. The woman is what puts the crown on top. That's the coronation. That's the actualization of Mashiach. So Melech and Melech is both, can be masculine and feminine depending how you're looking at it. You're looking at it either as Malchus, the receiver, right, which is feminine, or Malchus, the builder of the kingdom, which is masculine.
Rabbi, can I ask, this is John, very quickly.
Fair.
So the receptor or the feminine part, you're saying takes from the masculine part, but then builds and puts the crown on the masculine part. It's as if you're saying that.
Right, puts the crown on top, the finishing touch,
the finishing touches.
The crown.
It's like a man and a woman engaging in relations when they're married to have a child, but it's a woman that carries and gives birth and does everything after reception.
The fruition of the male energy of the building energy is the dwelling of the Shekhinah inside the building. So the masculine energy is the Malchus of one of one of the sections of the Maimon. We talked about Netzach. Netzach is victory. Netzach is winning a war. If you were around then, you remember this. If not, you don't. And Netzach Yisrael, God Himself is called Netzach, the power of the Jewish people. And that's also read that every Jew has a Netzach, and an ability to overcome, ability to break through. That's breaking through. That's a masculine energy, right? Another metaphor for this duality that's brought often in Chassidus is the notion of a seed and the earth. The seed goes into the earth. That's the masculine energy, and it stimulates a power, which is the power of birth, the power of fruition, which is in the earth. Now you ask,
the Greeks mention that, and others when they say Mother Earth. I'm sorry, but when the expression Mother Earth, I'm sorry.
Mother Earth, no, not be sorry. That's great. And if you ask yourself which is more important, I don't think you could say which. Without the seed, the earth doesn't give forth anything. But without the power of growth, which is latent inside in the womb, Mother Earth, right? Without that, the seed is useless. So these two sides of Melech, the masculine intruder, if you will, or the one who introduces itself into reality, right? But reality has a function. The way I'm using reality very loosely here. The recipient factor has an energy in it, which is the energy responsible for fruition, and that's the woman. But it takes two. That's all been an explanation, I hope. And you tell me if you haven't.
Well, it's similar to also Chokmah is a masculine energy, and then Bina is the feminine energy.
Right.
Takes the spark first, which is masculine, and then the Bina fleshes it out.
Beautiful. And what does the Zohar say about this relationship of Chokmah and Bina? It says in Aramaic, Shnei Re'en the two friends which are never separated. Again, there's no fruition without the seed, nor is there any fruition without the power of growth in the earth. There's no instantiation, I use that word a lot, realization of Chokhmah without Bina. But Bina needs the substantiation, the instantiation of the Chokhmah in order to grow. And then Bina, what does Bina do? Bina is like the earth. Bina gives forth. And gives forth what? The rest of the midos. Das, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, etc. And then this structure recapitulates from Chesed down to Yesod, giving out masculine energy that came from the birthplace of Chokhmah and Bina together, masculine energy going down into the sphere of Malchus, where here in this construct, Malchus is the feminine receiver, and that gives forth the Geula. Are we okay? Or not?
Yes, got it.
Okay.
Perfect.
But it reminds me of the function of a husband and wife at the Shabbos table. And I always wonder how the Shabbos, the Ruach of the Shabbos are.
Okay, I'll take that. Okay, page 132, Yud Beis. Now this is the second piece that we haven't covered at all. The first piece was make for me a holy temple. King, build, right? And my Shekhinah, divine presence, feminine, will live within it. Not only live within it, but flourish within it and beam out, so to speak, to the entire world, the redemptive energy. The next piece, the second piece, which we have learned, we're just going to mention it here, was the notion of Netzach Yisrael. And I touched on it earlier, but just touched on it, and I'll only touch on it now. Netzach Yisrael. God is called Netzach, the victorious, or the power of victory on the Jewish people. And in that voice, a couple of voices, I believe, I'm not quite sure, I don't remember, he exploded that energy, that's the energy of Netzach, is an energy of total perseverance and Mesiras Nefesh, which also exists in every Jew. And this is a point that I really don't want to lose. Whether we're talking about make me a holy temple and my Shekhinah dwells within them, remember the Midrash says, it doesn't say that make for me a holy temple and my Shekhinah will dwell within it. It says within them. And the Midrash says within each and every one of us. So this whole mimer is built on the structure of understanding these Pesukim as they pertain to each and every one of us. So we have the power to bring Mashiach, and part of that power is the power of Netzach, the power of Mesiras Nefesh, the power of total giving over. And the mashal that he uses is a king when his kingdom is being threatened by the biggest superpower in the world. He digs down really deep into the treasure houses of his ancestors, his father before him and his grandfather and great-grandfather, who were the previous kings, who amassed treasures from previous battles. And he gives all that deep treasure, which he never looks at, but now has to look at because it's coming to crunch time, so to speak. And he gives it to the foot soldiers in order that they can be victorious. So we are both the foot soldiers, and we have within us, it's been given to us by Hashem, power of victory. The power that comes from deep down, if we could say the analogy of generation after generation after generation, the analogy of that is one deeper and deeper and deeper levels toward the essence of Hashem. We know this, right? That our soul is a chelek elokah, is that we have a piece of godliness itself, the original deepest energy within us, and it is designed to be Netzach, to prevail. So touching that is a source of great strength. Now, that's a short summary of Netzach. Now, in Isa B'Tekuni Zohar, I'm reading now inside, is brought down in the section of the Zohar called the Tekunim about Hashem.
I'm sorry. Which line are you on again? Sorry to interrupt.
First line, page 132, paragraph Yud Beis. V'hine, lahaven inyan ha'oitzer lamayla. Yes? Page 132, paragraph Yud Beis. Lahaven inyan ha'oitzer lamayla, to understand this treasure house. The Zohar says, Or ein sof lamayla ad ein kates, lamata ad ein tachlis. The Zohar says that there is an Or ein sof, an infinite light, which goes and shines above without any end and below without any limit. The difference between those two words, end and limit, we will hopefully get into, but at the moment he's just quoting from the Zohar. V'hine, when it says in the Zohar that the Or Ein Sof emanates and permeates everything down to the end with no limit. Hakavana, the intentionality of that is, the intention of that is, that the revelation of Elokus, of godliness, knows no limit, no boundaries at all. Now, this has enormous implications, particularly in terms of what recent science is discovering about the nature of reality. That, I'll just say it in brief, but you can watch all kinds of things that are available now in terms of microscopic views of cellular and subcellular conduct, that everything is orchestrated down to the endlessness of everything. Down, 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 down. It's one thing to think of when you look up. Of course, I'm looking at the sky. It goes on, the universe. We know now the universe goes on forever. Perhaps even the physical universe goes on forever. But the news that this brings out is that down, down, down also is forever. That's the words he just said. The level of Ein Sof, which has no limit at all, as it radiates downward. Izehu Kriya Shem Or, and this is what we're calling the light of the infinite one. Not the infinite one, but the light, the beaming, the energy of the infinite one goes down and down into everything without end. Or atzmehu ein sof, meaning that the or itself, the light itself, is endless. Light, we can use generally a term that's used a lot in teaching Chassidus, light equals energy, or light equals vibration, frequency. Light has frequency. We know now, through scientific discovery, that every particle, physical particle, has a frequency. And that frequency is what's responsible for particular particularization of it. The reason for this is, the reason that light is infinite is because, and this is also an expression from Kabbalah, that the expression is that light is similar to, or put it, it's easier to say, radiation or irradiation is similar to the one who's radiated. Just like the God himself is infinite, so the light or energy which radiates from him is also infinite. And this is the inyan that it says, and this is the particular quality of light. Now, light, even though it's just a ray, right? Every ray of light on particular frequencies, etzem is a ray and it's not an essence. Essence is deeper than any manifestation whatsoever. Your essence, you have an essence, and then you manifest an essence through various and more increasingly superficial levels of consciousness, ultimately through thought and then speech and action. But essence itself is never revealed. Jonathan, you got a question or you want to say something?
Yes, Rabbi. It's interesting you mentioned that, and very quickly, it's God is limitless, unlimited, infinite, and the light that emanates from you saying is also like the source infinite, right? But my question is, God can also limit his creations by creating limitations. That was the dichotomy that we discussed years ago.
Right.
Can the infinite limit certain things to be limited, restricted? And I
Yes.
think so. That's something I wanted just to bring up a question. If the universe, for instance, is limited because God created it and there may be an end to it, then theoretically that would imply a limit. That's all.
Yeah, well, that would imply that there could be a limit. Because if you would say that
That's true.
Because if you say that God couldn't limit, then you're limiting him.
That's
right?
that's an interesting double entendre. Correct, but I'm saying that's from our perspective. But my question is, I mean, so God obviously he can create limitations. So although the light that emanates from him might be like the source unlimited, right? His creations, which can also be limited. So that doesn't necessarily mean that the universe is infinite. If there was a point A, a starting point where God created the universe, Borei Olam, that also means that theoretically he would create a point where the world would cease.
To separate these two ideas. One, which is not said here, but is said in other places, and you just agree that this is rather interesting and profound, that God has to have the ability to limit himself, otherwise he's limited, meaning he doesn't have the ability to limit himself. Put that aside. That's number one. What we're saying here is that when it comes to creation, and before creation, and all levels of creation, we're saying that the or is lamata ad ein tachlis. The light goes down without any limit whatsoever. Now, where does limiting come into play then? It comes into play where God hides the light, conceals the light, and those are the words that are, but the light itself is always there. As long as he's emanating, and he's by definition Ein Sof, there's no end to the light. The experience of the light can be limited. He can limit things so that the experience of limitedness exists. But all we're saying here so far, in terms of him and his light, the nature of him and his light is Ein Sof, without any limit.
That clarified it. That was great. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, why is that so? Because what do we just say? What is what so? Why is it that we're talking about the light and not about him himself? We're talking about emanation and not the emanator. Why is that? Because the emanator, the one who's able to emanate, has the capability to emanate. That essence, which has that capability, but there's an essence, and then what comes from the essence is in a state of complete Peshitus. Peshitus is a word that you're going to see a lot in Chassidus. Peshitus means utter simplicity, meaning there's nothing you can say about it. Right? I mean, an approximate metaphor for this is the difference between a line and a point. You know, Euclid defined a line as a continuation or continuity of points. But what is a point? So Euclid defined a point as something of zero dimension. So Atzmus, essence of God, has zero dimension, zero characteristics. That's the word Peshitus. It's ultimately Peshit, simple.
No structure, no variation. I'm sorry.
Not
no
only
structure, no variation. No variation.
More than that. It's not something that's where variation or no variation is relative, is relatable at all. You can't say that it's no or yes. It has nothing you can say about it. It's ultimately simplicity. I mean, Euclid's Lahavdil approximation was zero dimensionality. But you see that from zero dimension, you're taking points of zero dimensionality, and what do you make from them? Dimensionality. You make a line, right, which has a certain length. And from that length, you expand it and you make a certain width. But the origin of it has nothing you can say about it at all. It's ultimately the tachlis hapeshitus. That's the the language in Hebrew. It's just simplicity that has nothing you can say about it. Okay, so let's go back. Atzmus, essence, because we want to talk about the or, the light of the Ein Sof, right? The light Ein Sof. But first of all, what's the Ein Sof? What's the essence of the beginning of it in the first place? So that's called Peshitus, Ubebechinis Ein Sof, and it has no beginning and it has no end. And therefore, in a gam ha'or shehu me'en ha'moyer, therefore, the light which comes from this place of Peshitus, of simplicity, hu bechinis ein sof. It's totally without end. It can't be binded. What's the word? Bound up. It can't be shrunk because its character. The light is the characteristic of the light. Is its or ein sof. We always say that right. Or ein sof, the infinite light. But the infinite light, he's just making a point here, is distinct from God himself. The essence of God himself has nothing you can say about it. But the light, which comes from him, is Ein Sof, without end. V'zeh or Ein Sof, and this is what we mean by the light having no end. She'or atzmei hu bebechinas Ein Sof. Light itself has no end. V'hine me'ha'or hazeh, and from this light, hoye oilimus v'spheres ad ein kates. Come worlds and spheros without any end, ubli gvul, and without any boundedness at all. In this little expression, there is a paradox. It says, worlds from this light come worlds and spheros in infinite number of worlds and spheros. Every world, of course, is a defined state. We have this world, we have the world of Bria, Atsilis, Yesira, right? And those are condensations and definitions of light that's very bounded. That's the way the light exposes itself. But the light itself is infinite. So this is a paradox that in finitude, that is limitation, exists infinity. And we answered that question earlier with Jonathan's question. How does that? He conceals the infinite in order to reveal something that we call finite. But this is what I'm about to say is a very big piece of news. Everything is ultimately infinite because its source, the light, is Ein Sof. The light is infinite. It can be concealed, it can be tucked away, it can be hidden, but its nature is at its source is that it's infinite. Now, keep in mind, just as I said before, when we talked about make a holy temple, my Shekhinah will dwell within you. We're talking about the holy temple. We're talking about us. Earlier, when we talked about Netzach Yisrael, the power of God, which is Netzach, eternal, to prevail over everything as a function of God, that's also us. And we are, and this level that we're talking tonight, is an echo in a certain way of us being a chelek elokah, a part of God. Meaning, ultimately, we are infinite beings that are presented through many concealments and coverings as finite.
That's like throughout, like Elokeinu, like Elo. It's through.
Right. Excellent. Okay, there's a beautiful. There's Havaya Elokeinu. You see this over and over again. Havaya Elokeinu. We say it all the time. Havaya, which is Yud Haveh, continual being, right? Continual. Yud Haveh, always being, no restrictions, can become Elokeinu, can become restricted through the process which is called Tzimtzum, right? But the substrate of Tzimtzum is an energy which is infinite.
Sorry, what substrate? What does that mean?
Underneath it, the underneath stuff is infinite. Okay? And believe what?
Well, would I be detracting if I asked you this question? Do we use our very concealed infinity, if that's possible somehow, I mean, are we expected to dip into some speck of infinity to
Yes,
do our Dira Batat time?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
That's,
Okay.
that's our ability to break through all limitations. Yes, we're expected to, and God willing, we will. And do, simple things like, we do it all the time when, let's say you have a face-to-face experience of another person, and another person says something which you disagree with. You have a choice. Are you going to then respond with something which creates more distance? Like, how can you say that? Are you kidding me? Or are you going to create an experience that looks through that and says, hey, we're two souls. That soul has a different view of things than I do, but we come from the same place. So let's get on that same place wavelength, right? So yeah, that's everyday talk. But ultimately, that's what's going to bring, what does it say? What's going to bring the redemption? Avis Yisrael. Why is that so important? Because the commonality is the opposite of Avis Yisrael. The common experience is, I don't break through your shell, and you don't break through my shell to live with awareness of each other's godliness, which is hidden, which is a function of the Ein Sof, in function of the infinite. So breaking through that's Ahavas Yisrael. Breaking through those limitations is modeling the global experience of the world, breaking through all that and living with awareness of the infinite within everything. Okay, well, that's end of the sentence here. So back to English. The light of worlds and the spheros, that light penetrates everything ad ein kates, without any end, ubligvul, without any boundaries whatsoever at all. Ubefanim acherim legami, and in completely different ways. Hainu sha'olemus v'aspiras gufa ein bligvul. The worlds and the spirits themselves are without limitation. Again, a paradox. What do you mean by that? If you can name it, if you could call chesed, and is different from gevura, those two different qualities, aren't there? Right? Well, two things can be said about this. Each one of them has their own quality infinitely, and each one of them has the inclusion of all the other qualities. That's the notion that in this world we call the world of Tikkun, that the spheros inter-include each other. Right? Becomes prominent in when we count the Omer, right? Chesed shebe chesed, chesed shebe gevura, chesed shebe tiferes, etc. Chesed is chesed, gevura is gevura, but since both of them contain something infinite which transcends them all, them both, they can get together. Similarly with two people, really different from each other. One's Hasidic, one's Gevuradic, right? And that's going to create worlds of separation. To create worlds of all-inclusiveness, one has to break through to the commonality, which is ultimately the Or Ein Sof that exists in each and every one of us. The Chelek Elokah, the part of godliness which transcends singularity and differentiation. Okay, is this good? Clear? Any questions? Okay. Besides this, they're also believable misporum. Worlds, let's back up a little. I've said this, but just to context it in a maybe more simple way. The word oilam, world, is the same word as helam, the ayin lamed mem, alem, to conceal. The fact that there are worlds, the fact that I'm in my world and you're in your world, the fact that there's the world of Avi and there's the world of Golda, two different names, right? That's a function of Helam, of concealment. The fact that there's an Atzilus and a Bria, these two different worlds, we live in two different worlds. That two different worlds is a function of concealment. What we're learning tonight and focusing primarily on is that if you dig down a little bit deeper, you'll find there's a commonality, not only a unity, a unification between us, because underneath it all, everything is just the manifestation of the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, which knows no limits, and which intrinsically, externally it can be hidden, but internally, intrinsically, it's infinite. So as I said earlier, that's the function of tearing away, tearing is not a good word, somehow coming, permeating the externality in order to see the internality in everybody, in every world, and ultimately in the entirety of creation. Well, Kamaimer, as the saying goes, Befirish Inyan Spiros, there's a saying he's going to bring now from places in Chassidus, where it speaks about the notion of the Spiros, right? The 10 Spiros. It speaks about Spiros and Kates. There are Spiros without end. We're used to 10, right? But if you're looking at the Sphira as a concealment of something infinite, and focusing on the infinite, so there's no end. The Spheros themselves, each Sphira, are intrinsically without limit. It's only because of Tzimtzum, Hester, these contraction and concealment, that individuation appears. But underneath it all, it's Ein Od Milvado. There's nothing besides him. Shehem b'mitzvah bli gvul. Ultimately, they're without limitation and without any without any numeration. There's no end to them.
Rabbi,
Are you saying
Rabbi,
it because
how
I'm
can
sorry,
we-
because it's about
I'm sorry,
him?
how can we
It's about
explain how can
Wait.
we explain our individuality, Rabbi? If
Well,
Wait.
we're ultimate,
Jonathan, can I just ask this question first and then you can go?
Stepping on each other. Seema, you were first. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So you're saying that like all of the spheros are without limit because they're one with Hashem. Because basically part of Hashem. I don't want to say part of Hashem. That's not the right thing.
In the language of our mimer, we would say because they are an instance of the Or Ein Sof. That meaning a light which knows no boundaries, which knows no end. That itself is a bit of a paradox. An instance, right, here it is, but really it's something that has no end.
How does it have no end when there's also Gevura and there's also
Gevura also has no end. Hesed also has no end. The characteristics of them are, put it this way, a person has an essence, and as the person grows up, right, that essence begins to take particular forms. The essence is still there, hasn't been touched, but it takes particular forms. So similarly, as God unrolls the creation, it's all unrolled, it's all empowered by, it owes existence to an Or Ein Sof. But as he unrolls it, he, through his techniques, namely Tzimtzum, contraction, degrees of Tzimtzum, he gives characteristics to that essence. So Gevura behaves, for instance, put it this way, you can behave in different manners in different situations, right? Everyone would agree with that? Does that change your essence?
no?
So from the one perspective, the essence is unchangeable, unfathomable, ungraspable, right? But it can be channeled into particular expressions. Those channeling of the infinite into particular expressions we call the spheros. Yes or no? Maybe we have to look into the, I mean, is that okay or not? If not, then we'll just need to put it aside for a moment, and we'll go deeper. We'll get into it as we learn other things.
But Matt, make a quick question about that. Our individuality. If that's true, then how do we explain our individual? Is there any real concept of individual particularity?
We explain it the same way we do as we just spoke about. The individuality comes from a superficial layering on of, or better put, a superficial, because it's not happening at the essence. The essence is always in soul. A superficial characteristic that's given to this Ein Sof through the process of tzimtzum. Through the process, he contracts it, right? He contracts the light, or he conceals the light, right? And there are different ways in which that's done, creating different expressions.
Thank you.
Here's a marshal. Here's a good marshal that might be useful, helpful. It's helpful for me. The metaphor of the physiological function of speaking. Speaking begins with breath. Every letter has to have breath into it to be articulated, right? Now I can take that, and if I close my teeth, or put my tongue, if I put my tongue on the lip, on the palate, top of my palate, right? I can differentiate that. And letters, this is a metaphor used to explain, hopefully this and many other things, where on the one hand, there's a singularity. It's called Hashem Echad. So you have the same question. Then where does multiplicity come from, right? If everything, like your question or our question tonight is, if everything is infinite, how does the experience of finitude come about? So it comes about through this, back to our speech, there are 5 articulative aspects of the mouth. The letter Hey. There's the Yud, which is the thing that has no definition at all. It's the essence that has no characteristics. And then you layer on at 5, the palate, the teeth, the mouth, the tongue, and the throat. And you layer, now you can, where do those come from? But let's leave that aside. And therefore you take that undifferentiated, and in our context tonight, infinite energy, and you layer on it something which we call various ways of contracting. He has the faculty of limiting as well as the faculty of unlimiting, and he limits it in particular. That the faculty, this is a real paradox. The 2 faculties of he is unlimited, meaning he's not limited by not being able to limit something. That being able to limit something is part of his infinity, part of his allness. So we can say, Ein od milvado, there's nothing besides him. And if there's nothing besides him, then there's only infinite. In fact, there's only essence, which we said earlier was even before energy, and any of the energies were emanated. There's only essence. And then comes hispashtus, comes the flow from the essence, which is unlimited energy, above without end, below without end, right? But it's not delivered untouched, and it's touched by the faculty of limitation. So I guess a short way of saying this, everything is infinite disguised as finite. I mean,
That's clear to me.
okay, then, so we got there. Okay, I don't have pat answers to these questions. That's why I love this class, because it makes all of us think, I think. right?
I think you're terrific.
No, I mean, it's great. You bring it out.
We
Okay.
all do.
Okay. We are now, I'm just going to point out where we are. If you're looking at the page, the bottom of the page, count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. The line begins with Lavad, Lamed Beis Daled. And we're going over after a little comma. And it says, Ukadeisa be'idra zutra. And we're going to end with this saying from the Zohar. What's the Zohar said? Kahai butzino. This is a Zohar metaphor for light in a candle. Kahai butzino, like this candle. This pashit lekol sita. That what am I looking for? Shines out to all sides, the Iba in every directions. So like the candle, right? The candle is a singular source, and from it comes light in all directions. The kad istakel leminodoloin leilishtochach elabutzina behuadoy. And when you look at it, there's light coming out of it, but what you see is the source. You see the candle. Gehaner hazeh, like this candle we're talking about. Gasha oirei minoitzetz lekol oive upina. A fire, imagine a campfire where there's a singular source. It's the fire in the fireplace. And there's sparks, and then you have the beautiful leaves, so to speak, of the fire. And then you have the sparks of the fire, right? But all of them, and this is what he's trying to bring out, or bringing out, hopefully, is that all those little things which come out ultimately are due to and a function of the singularity at the beginning, which these are the candle or the fire in the fireplace. Then everything goes out to every side. When you look at it to see what is it, what do you see? You see light, i.e., you see light in different forms. This is a spark, this is a flame, this is a tzilis, this is brir, but there is a singularity, which is the infinite source of everything, which is pervasive, and there and present all the time. Otherwise, all these different forms of things couldn't exist. And that singular source is what this is metaphorically is a metaphor for what we called earlier the Peshitus Be'etzem, the ultimate simplicity. From ultimate simplicity comes infinite diversity. From undifferentiated infinity comes differentiated multiplicity.
It seems like a paradox, doesn't it?
Is there a limit? Is there a limit to differentiated multiplicity, Rabbi?
No.
Is that limited?
No.
So the differentiated multiplicity is unlimited the way the simplicity is unlimited.
Yeah.
So
that. Lamaila aden taflis, lamata aden case.
Thank you. Okay.
No, the other way around. Lamaila aden case, lamata aden taflis. There's no end to it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that, this time of Geula, there's this whole minimalist sort of lifestyle that's become very popular. And I'm wondering if that relates at all to just, Geula influencing, the masses to embrace this simplicity that is laying the ground for this, what you call diversity or differentiated multiplicity. Whatever that is. I don't know what it is.
I don't know.
Rabbi, I also asked the question whether Hashem would want to have multiplicity ad infinitum, or if he created the universe at a set point in time, would he not want the universe would he not want the essence that he alienated, what he alienated from himself in the creation of multiple, to return to himself, the ultimate infinite simplicity?
Well,
and that
yeah,
would imply a limit that he may intentionally put into the process. Sorry.
what you're saying is a way of saying what the ultimate paradox is. It says, come the time of Geula, and then later Techias Amesim, we will see with our own eyes how that means there's a bunch of us. Everybody will still be everybody, their whole bit, but we will see the singularity of the infinite in everything, the singular source of it. And that's really, to my mind, a real paradox. I don't know anything about what you're talking about. It's not something I'm familiar with. But the idea that all flesh will see flesh, there will be flesh, and you will be you in your flesh, and I will be me in my flesh, and we will all see the singularity of infinity in everything.
Would not Hashem want the ultimate teleological purpose of his creation?
What's
to be returning
teleological?
to teleological, not theological, teleological purpose. Tachlit.
What is that word?
Tachlit. Tachlit, the exact translation in Hebrew is tachlis. Tachlit. Tachlit. Would he not want the returning to himself? If he alienates himself in the creation of multiplicity, wouldn't be the return to himself, which would imply that the multiplicity that he could create as being infinite is limited. He would say, and that asks the basic question is, what's the purpose? What was the reason why? What's the ultimate teleological, ultimate tachlit of Hashem's intent in creating the universe?
Teleological, that's the right word. End game is
teleological. Teleological is tachlit.
Is, and I'm not making this up, believe me, is the Saba Kutshabricha. What does God want? Liras Loi, that he himself, in his infinite and even beyond infinite singularity, should be dwelling down here below. We should have insight into that. As what does Isaiah Yeshayahu say at the end of his prophecy? That in the future, the entire work of man will not have to work. And let's not get into a discussion about AI and robots, please. Man will not have to work. What will he do? The whole work of man will be to study God, to see God.
To bring Hashem closer to bring Hashem. So that explains in a way why he created the universe and man. So the creature that he created to come closer to the understanding of Hashem's essence, his infinity. That also implies that the physical development in the universe will continue not ad infinitum, but ad infinitum minus one. Remember years ago?
We'll see the infinite. The shorthand of that is we'll see the infinite and the finite. Paradox.
I'm just thinking it's not far-fetched to think that the whole automated system, shall we call it /robots, will serve us so that they actually perpetuate themselves and we just reap the benefits of their work.
Maybe. I'm not, as I say, I didn't want to get into this.
Okay,
Rabbi, I'm sorry.
But there are those that I maybe not anybody I know particularly from the Torah world, but there are those in the world who do understand that the way you said.
Rabbi, that begs a question as to why would Hashem create the universe and man, etc., and the whole process of creation? And that begs the question as to why would he do that unless he wanted to bestow the greatest good, and that greatest good recognizing and returning to the source? I don't know. Why would Hashem alienate himself in the creation of the universe if the ultimate teleological purpose, tachlit, is not the reunification? Okay, sorry.
The pat answer that is given in Chassidus, which works, is absence makes the heart grow fonder. Right? You distant from if you are one with the one you love, and then for some reason you're sent on a journey far away and you don't see the one you love, so you yearn for him more. That's that. But the ultimate answer, also said in Chassidus, is don't ask any questions about why. Why is not explicable. Why did he do it? And why does he do it this way? And with this, I think we're going to wind up, okay?
Okay, thank you very much.
We'll continue, God willing,
Thank
Maybe
you so much,
bring it back
Rabbi,
to
for an
maybe we'll
extraordinary.
back to the fire, in the backyard. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi. That was extraordinary. Thank you so much.
Thank
Okay.
you so much. Thank you.
You got it.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Bye-bye.